My wife had been using another man's last name for years. I found out because an employee corrected me. Lila had left her canvas work apron at a community workshop in Lincoln, Nebraska, and asked me to pick it up while I was downtown. I walked into Prairie Works Cooperative and told the woman at the desk I was there for something belonging to Lila Whitaker. She searched behind the counter. Whitaker. Lila Whitaker. Her face brightened. Oh, you mean Lila Donovan. I thought I had misheard her. No, Whitaker. The woman smiled uncertainly. She's Lila Donovan here. Has been for years. My wife and I had been married 37 years. Her maiden name was Kessler. Donovan was not part of either family. My name is Graham Whitaker. I was 66, retired from managing commercial refrigeration crews. Lila worked part-time doing bookkeeping for a landscaping company. I held up my phone. About this tall, brown hair going gray, green eyes. Yes, Lila. The employee found a faded blue apron with 3 sharpened carpenter pencils in the pocket. Across the chest, written in black marker, were the words, Lila Donovan. I drove home with it on the passenger seat. That evening, I almost asked her. Instead, I watched. Lila took the apron from me, thanked me, folded it twice, and carried it into the laundry room. You get everything done? I asked. At the shop. You called the shop? She hesitated. Sometimes. How long have you been going there? A while. There was again an answer shaped to stop another question. 2 weeks later, we were walking through a hardware store when a man near the lumber aisle called out, Lila Donovan. She turned before I did. He hugged her. Not politely. Like someone who had known her a long time. Then he noticed me. Lila stepped back. The man's smile faded, and I understood that whoever Donovan was, I was the only person in that aisle who had not been told the whole story. The man introduced himself as Joel Ramsey. He was probably 50, broad through the shoulders, with sawdust caught in the cuff of his jacket. You must be Graham, he said. That bothered me. He knew my name. I had never heard his. Lila said, Joel runs open shop on Saturdays. Runs what? The woodworking floor. Joel looked from Lila to me. Something passed between them. Not romance. Recognition of a conversation I was not part of. He handed Lila a pack of orange carpenter pencils. Found another box. She smiled. You're encouraging me. You go through them like cigarettes. Then Joel walked away. I looked at the pencils. One side carried faded black lettering. Donovan Custom Woodwork. I had seen that name before. Not recently. Somewhere in a part of my life where old businesses, school fundraisers, and people we used to know had started blending together. At home, I put groceries away while Lila stood at the counter sharpening one of the pencils with a utility knife. Who's Donovan? The blade stopped. She did not look up. Why? Because apparently you are. I used the name at Prairie Works. I figured that part out. She turned the pencil once between her fingers. It's complicated. Is Donovan a man? Yes. That answer sat heavily between us. Someone you were involved with? No. You're using his last name. I know. For how long? 8 years. I laughed once. Not because anything was funny. 8 years, Lila. She put down the knife. I should have told you. That's not the same as telling me why. No. She carried the pencils into the spare room. I did not follow. For the next week, I noticed things I had previously treated as clutter, small hardware store receipts in the kitchen bowl, with dust on the cuffs of her jeans, a thin white scar across her right thumb. She had told me that came from opening a package. Now I was not sure. The following Saturday, she left shortly after breakfast. Prairie Works. I asked, Yes. Are you Lila Whitaker today? She looked at me, then picked up the blue apron. I don't know how to answer that without making this worse. She left. That answer made it worse anyway. I did not follow her that Saturday. I lasted 3 hours. Then I drove to Prairie Works because I had convinced myself I needed more drill bits. The building occupied an old grocery warehouse. Through the open woodworking area, I saw maybe a dozen people sanding tables, repairing chairs, cutting boards. Lila stood at a workbench beside an older man, late 70s, white hair, thin denim shirt. She was showing him a small walnut box. The man ran his hand over the corner joint. Then he smiled. Lila's face changed. I had seen that expression when our son came home after his first year in the Navy. Pride, relief, something close to love. The older man put both hands around hers. He said something I could not hear. Lila's eyes filled. Then she leaned forward and hugged him. He kissed the side of her forehead. I backed away before she saw me. In my truck, the name finally came back. Lila Donovan. He had owned a small cabinet shop on Cornhusker Highway in the late 90s. Lila used to talk about him. A lot. Before bookkeeping, before our son left home, before my promotions and her mother's illness, Lila had worked 3 mornings a week at a furniture refinishing shop. Silas sometimes hired her for restoration jobs. She called him the first person who taught her how to see what we wanted to do. I used to make fun of that sentence. Silas was 20 years older than her, married, not someone I had considered romantic competition, but I had resented him anyway. He treated Lila's woodworking as serious work at a time when I thought of it as an expensive hobby. I remembered one argument. Lila came home excited because Silas had let her rebuild a damaged walnut secretary desk. I asked how much she made. She told me. I said, "You spent 4 days earning what you could make in one doing books." She went quiet. I barely noticed. Now, nearly 30 years later, my wife had Silas Donovan's name across her apron, and when he held her hands, she looked like someone had finally returned something to her. I went home without drill bits. That night, she said, "You went there." I asked how she knew. "Joel saw you leave." I said, "Tell me who you are there." Lila sat down. "I'm still your wife." That wasn't my question. "No," she said, "it wasn't." Silas Donovan had never been Lila's lover. That was the first major truth. She told me at our kitchen table, while the dishwasher ran behind us. Silas and his wife, Marlene, had known us when our son was still in middle school. He gave Lila occasional restoration work because she had patience and good hands. "He treated me like an apprentice before I knew I wanted to be one," she said. 8 years earlier, Lila walked into Prairie Works for a beginning furniture repair class. She had not touched serious woodworking in almost 2 decades. Silas happened to be volunteering there. They recognized each other immediately. He asked what I'd built lately. "What did you say?" "Nothing." Silas invited her to stay after class. The next week, she returned. Then again. Eventually, she began helping other members repair old furniture. When the desk volunteer asked for her surname, Lila gave a different one. "Donovan." "Why his?" She looked toward the spare room where the blue apron hung. At first, I think I was embarrassed. Of me? Of myself. She had spent years telling people woodworking was something she used to do. Going back at 60 felt foolish to her. Using Donovan made it feel connected to part of her life where the work had once been real. I said, "You could have used Kessler. I owe my old name. Why not Whitaker?" She did not answer. That silence was more painful than Silas kissing her forehead. I asked if Silas knew she used his name. "Yes." "What did he think?" "He told me it was ridiculous." I almost smiled. Almost. "Then why keep doing it?" "Because after a while people knew me that way. That's 8 years of people knowing my wife by another man's name. I know." The relief of discovering there had been no affair lasted less than a minute. She had still created a version of herself I had never met. She volunteered under that name, taught under it, made friends under it. Joel knew me as her husband before I knew he existed. I asked the question that had been sitting between us all evening. "What happened between you and Silas before you stopped woodworking?" Lila looked down at her hands. "He offered me a job. I waited. She added, and for 26 years, I thought he changed his mind. The offer came in 1999. Silas had won a contract restoring woodwork inside an old hotel being converted into offices. It was 6 months of steady work. He wanted Lila on the crew, not as a helper, as a paid restoration apprentice. I remembered the project. I did not remember the offer. Lila had already talked with Silas about it more than once. She wanted the work. She also worried about the schedule. Our son was having trouble in school. My overtime had been cut. Her bookkeeping job offered steadier hours, and 6 months of restoration work felt risky. I told Silas I didn't know if we could make it work, she said. So he knew you were unsure. Yes. Silas told her to think about it. He would call once he had the final start date. Lila waited. The call never came. At least, that was what she believed. 2 weeks later, Silas hired someone else. Lila was humiliated. She stopped visiting his shop. When he called the house once after that, she let the answer machine pick up and erase a message before listening to all of it. That sounds like both of you were stubborn, I said. We were. She did not protect herself. That mattered. Silas assumed Lila had made the practical choice she had already been considering. Lila assumed Silas decided she was not good enough. Marlene told them both to talk. Neither did. Then life got crowded. My father had a heart attack. Our son started having more trouble in school. Lila's mother needed surgery. By the following year, the apprenticeship had become one of those disappointments that grew harder to mention because too much time had passed. So what changed 8 years ago? Silas asked why I never took the job. I stared at her. He thought you refused? Yes. How? Lila went to the drawer beside the refrigerator and took out one of the orange carpenter pencils. Donovan Custom Woodwork. She rolled across the table toward me. I found a box of those at Prairie Works. Silas donated old supplies when he closed his shop. The pencil stopped near my hand. He said he was surprised I wanted to work with Wood again after turning him down. What did you tell him? That he never gave me a start date. Silas stared at her. Then he told her he had called our house. A man answered. Silas said he reminded him that Lila had been uncertain, explained the final hours and pay, and asked whether she had decided. The man told him she had. I stopped touching the pencil. I already knew who had answered that phone. I just had not remembered what I said. The memory came back in pieces. I was 39. My company had reduced overtime, and for the first time in years, I was worried about money. Our son needed braces. My truck needed a transmission. Lila's bookkeeping job had offered more hours. We had talked about Silas's apprenticeship several times. Lila wanted it. Then she would look at our checkbook and say she did not know. One night she said, maybe this isn't the right year. I heard that as the beginning of a decision. Then Silas called. I remembered standing in the hallway with the long beige phone cord stretched from the kitchen. He said the restoration job was ready to start. He knew Lila had been worried about the hours and money. He asked if she had decided. I asked what he was paying. The number still sounded low to me. I thought about braces, the truck, and the bookkeeping hours. Then I said, she's decided to stick with the bookkeeping work. Silas paused, not suspicious, disappointed. If that's what she wants. I answered, it is. He had every reason to believe me. I was her husband. He already knew she was conflicted, and I genuinely believed I was resolving something we had nearly decided together. That did not make it mine to decide. I never told Lila, he called. Not because I wanted to take woodworking from her, because I believed I had solved the problem. A few days later, she asked whether Silas had called while she was at her mother's house. I said no. That part was harder to defend. Maybe by then I had convinced myself the call did not count because I had handled it. Maybe I did not want to reopen the decision. Either way, I looked at her and said no. That was the second major truth. I had not ended Lila's woodworking career. She stopped returning Silas's calls. She erased one message before hearing all of it. Silas let pride keep him from confronting her directly. Our financial pressures were real. The apprenticeship might have been wonderful. It might have been 6 difficult months we regretted. I would never know. What I had done was narrower. I took one important choice away from her. When Lila learned the truth at Prairie Works, she drove home and sat in our driveway for almost an hour. I was inside watching football. You could have come in, I said. I could have. Why didn't you? Because I knew what you would say. I waited. You would say you were sorry. I am. I know. She looked at me. Then you would start explaining why 39-year-old Graham thought he was doing the right thing. She knew me. I had already begun. For the first year at Prairie Works, Lila used Donovan because writing Whitaker beside woodworking made her angry. She said that without softening it. When I wrote your name beside woodworking, I heard you telling Silas what I wanted. I looked down. And using his name fix that? No. Then why? Because I could walk into that room and not be the woman whose husband had answer for her. There it was. Not tribute alone. A boundary. Silas's name connected her to the work she had lost. It also kept me outside it. She admitted she liked that, more than she wanted to admit. At Prairie Works, nobody knew she had once abandoned woodworking. Nobody knew I had dismissed the money as impractical. Nobody asked whether she was someone's wife before asking how she repaired a chair. Then the secret became convenient. 1 year became 3. 3 became 8. Did you ever plan to tell me? Yes. When? She gave a tired laugh. Apparently after 8 years and an accidental apron retrieval. I did not laugh. She stopped. I was angry for a long time, she said. Then I was embarrassed that I was still angry. And after that, I liked having one place you couldn't have an opinion about. That's not fair. No. She looked at me. But it's true. Silas had his part too. He told Lila he should have spoken directly to her in 1999. He had accepted my answer because it matched the uncertainty she had already shared with him. Later, when Lila stopped coming around and erased his message, he let pride tell him she had made her choice. They lost years of friendship over a decision neither of them confirmed face to face. The orange pencils changed meaning for me. At first they looked like evidence of another man's presence in my wife's life. Now I saw one line beside our grocery list and remember myself at 39, holding a telephone and making a decision because it was faster than waiting for Lila to make it. I told her I wanted to apologize to Silas. She shook her head. If you see him, you can, but don't ask me to arrange your forgiveness. I did not argue. That was new. For a while, the name became the thing we tripped over. If I said Lila Donovan, she heard sarcasm even when I did not mean it. If I asked about Prairie Works, she sometimes answered as if I were checking up on her. One evening, she came home with shavings stuck to her sweater. I brushed one off her shoulder. What are you making? She hesitated. A cedar chest. For who? She almost said, why? I saw it happen. Then she stopped herself. For a donation auction. Can I see it sometime? Maybe. 2 weeks later, Silas called our house. Lila answered, spoke for a minute, then held out the phone. He wants you. I took it. Silas's voice was older than I remembered. You still think bookkeeping pays better? I closed my eyes. Usually. He laughed. That helped. I apologized. I shouldn't have told you what you wanted. Silas was quiet. No. I was scared about money. I figured. That doesn't change it. No. I almost kept going, then stopped. Silas said, I should have called her back myself. We left it there. Lila was still standing in the kitchen when I hung up. You didn't give him the speech. I had one ready. I know. She smiled. I still dislike hearing strangers call her Donovan. She still had no intention of dropping the name just because I knew about it. I'm not giving it up because you found out, she said. I didn't ask you to. You were thinking it. She was right. A month later, she invited me to Prairie Works for an open house Saturday. It would be the first time I entered that building with her, instead of because I was looking for something she left behind. I asked how she wanted me introduced. Lila said, I don't know yet. For once, I let the answer stay unfinished. Prairie Works was louder than I expected, so I was running in the back room. A pottery wheel turning somewhere beyond a divider. People drinking coffee from mismatched reusable cups. Lila wore the blue apron. Lila Donovan was still written across the front. I noticed. I did not comment. Joe Ramsey saw us near the tool wall. Lila Donovan, he said, you actually brought him. Lila looked at me. I looked at her. The moment was awkward enough that Joel immediately regretted speaking. Then he held out his hand. Graham, right? Right. He looked back at Lila. How do you want to introduce him to everybody? There it was. The question neither of us had answered at home. Lila glanced around the workshop. Silas was at a table helping a teenager clamp a loose chair rung. Two women were sanding a cabinet door. Someone had left 3 orange Donovan pencils beside the coffee pot. Lila said, This is Graham. He's my husband. Nothing more. No reclaiming. No explanation. Joel nodded. Good to finally meet you. Later, Lila showed me the cedar chest. The corners were fitted so tightly I could barely see the joints. It's beautiful, I said. She ran her thumb across the lid. Thank you. I did not ask what it would have sold for. That mattered more to me than it probably did to her. Before we left, Lila stopped at the supply table. A stack of blank adhesive name tags sat beside the sign-in sheet. Her old reusable coffee cup was there too. Lila Donovan had been written on it years ago in permanent marker. She picked up the cup. For a second, I thought she might cross a name out. She didn't. She took a blank name tag instead. With one of the orange carpenter pencils, she wrote, Lila Donovan. Then she paused. Below it, smaller, she added, Whitaker. She stuck the tag onto the cup beneath the old writing. The two names did not line up perfectly. Lila pressed one loose corner flat with her thumb.